Well, after the trade deadline, the Cavaliers were shorthanded a little bit with their roster, but that didn't stop them from taking down the Washington Wizards 134-124. You got Spencer squared here to break it down for you. Obviously, not in Washington. Spence made the trip to Detroit, but we're all back home here for this one. Excited to be here, though, to recap another solid win for the Cavaliers as they improved to 42-10 on the season. Also, kind of forgot about this going into the game, Spence. 12th straight time that they've beaten the Washington Wizards as well. So a team that they've owned pretty handily the last several years, rightfully so, because that team's obviously in very much a rebuild phase. But a great game tonight, and obviously a lot that stands out. I think I want to start, Spence, with the fact that, Evan Mobley had that rough game against the Celtics, and everyone was ready to start raising the red flag, thinking, oh, there's something here. And he quickly responded with his last two games being some of his most brilliant performances. He was great again tonight. Obviously, Donovan was great tonight, kind of leading the charge for this team. But a nice all-around win for a team, like I said, that was a little bit shorthanded after the trade deadline because DeAndre Hunter hasn't taken the floor yet, and you were down Karis LeVert and George Niang, who obviously are down in Atlanta trying to pass their own physicals.
Good way to put it. Well-rounded victory. I still don't think it was the best night that they've had. That first half, not so great defensively, kind of getting beat off the dribble on the perimeter, not really kind of moving their feet well. Obviously, there's a lot of, emotions that go into the trade deadline and playing your first games after. They just didn't really have it in the first half, I think, defensively. And then also it was a little bit sloppy early, which is natural. But to your point, Donovan had it going. That was with the pull-up threes. That was with the catch-shoot threes. Darius Garland certainly in transition with the three-pointers. Max Strus, I thought, had one of his better games of the season tonight, which was really good to see. He just kind of just runs around like a madman. I really enjoy watching Max Strus play because even when you look on his closeouts, they might be a little erratic sometimes, but that guy just plays his heart out every single second of the game that he's out on the floor. And, you brought up Evan Mobley. I think tonight you saw more of him putting it on the ground, trying to attack a mismatch. Keyshawn George, a rookie who doesn't have quite as much height or strength as Evan, he was really putting it on the floor, attacking him, trying to get to the basket, got to the rim, and also to the free throw line. So big time there. Jared Allen, another ho-hum night, 12-12. It seems like every time we talk about this guy, he's got a double-double, even though he's not the most involved in the offense, but they did a good job of that. I still think they got to be better on the rebounding side, and they corrected that a little bit there in the second half. But my MVPs of the night, honestly, are Craig Porter Jr. and Jalen Tyson, to be quite honest. Just the energy that they bring, it's always something that they're doing to contribute to winning. And it's an offensive rebound. It's setting a screen. It's chasing down a loose ball. It's getting their hands in there to make sure that their teammates get a rebound. All sorts of things that they do and are just always in the right spot at the right time and making the simple plays, which I think really goes a long way. And then, to wrap that up, Ty Jerome, always with the floater, always just kind of keeping defenders on their toes. I still have no idea how he executes that slow step on the way to the rim. And it's a legal move too when you watch it. It's just so hard to defend when guys are backpedaling and you don't know what to do and how to defend it. And he's just got that floater game really working, and he's involving his teammates. So, like you said, up and down, always on the right same page on the offensive end. Defensively, be a little bit more connected. But, hey, Jordan Poole wanted to take 40 shots tonight, apparently. So that's what he went out and did, and he had himself a good game. But I think that the Cavs ended up handling the second half a little better than the first, but still not that great of a night. But it's a victory. And, DG bailed him out the other night in Detroit. Tonight, they were able to get it done on the road in D.C.
Yeah, I like this comment from Yamano_2. They mostly played with their food, but I'm glad they pulled through in the end. I think that's a good way to put it. Like, you're playing a team like Washington. They're not very good post-trade deadline. Obviously, we know the All-Star break is also looming. Kind of human nature to start kind of getting yourself mentally in a phase of like, okay, yeah, we get a break coming up. But they were able to pull it out, and I do think that sort of is a testament to being a good team. Like, even when they have their off nights and it takes a little bit more against a bad team, they still come out on top. Yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head, though, with a lot of the role players tonight. We know, like I said, we talked about what Evan did. We talked about what Donovan did. Even Darius was obviously very efficient tonight, 60% from three. But yeah, like Max Strus, it's funny. Like we know Max is such a streaky player from a shooting perspective, but like you said, like the effort is always there. And when he is hot, like his impact is always noticeable. But when he's able to knock down shots too, it like you feel like he is genuinely like such an important piece of this team when he's also knocking down shots, because man, like when he has both those things going, he's almost unstoppable. Like it's fun to see him get in these zones where he's like knocking down everything. Just hope that for this team, he can do that when it matters most in the playoffs. But it was good to see him, get that stroke back tonight.
Most definitely. And I think that it's the havoc that he causes when he runs around the floor. Like I said, he's almost like the Energizer Bunny, the way that he's just kind of making guys chase him. He's always trying to chase down rebounds, had 5 boards tonight, looking to make plays that really change a game. Like I think in the fourth quarter, the one where he chased down a loose ball and he threw it off of a guy's leg while he was kind of teetering on the baseline. Those are the things that you don't see in a box score that Max Strus does really well. It's those things that don't show up, and they are so much a coach's dream to watch that kind of effort. And he's always just giving you 110% every time. And he's just so fun to watch. Even when he's in scramble mode defensively, you can tell that he's trying his best to get out to guys. And I know that the closeouts can be erratic sometimes. He's over aggressive a lot defensively, but that's a good thing. I think you got to be a little bit more disciplined sometimes. But when you see that kind of try hard, go out there and do that and really help out guys on the perimeter and make sure that, the other team's making bad decisions, he's really good in that. And I think he's also, I've brought this up multiple times on these shows, like an outlet passer. I think he's really good at advancing the ball. And when he's ready to shoot, and you see when his shoulders are squared to the rim, you can tell when it's going to go. And you can tell when his teammates know it's going to go. But what a way to cap the fourth quarter, like Cavalanche, as many people call it, then streaking up the floor and throwing a lob to Evan Mobley. You could tell the guys really like that. He had an opportunity, too, in transition to possibly dunk it, and he ended up getting a little too much of the high glass, a little strong. It rolled off the rim. I saw that DG really wanted him to dunk in transition. He had a dunk in Detroit the other night where he threw the ball in on an and one, but you could tell that his teammates are rooting for him, and he is definitely going to be a big part of this. And we've brought up his playoff experience and what he's done in the postseason for that Miami team. This is going to pay off big time for them in a couple months.
Yeah, it's you mentioned the role players in this one playing such an important role. And Ty Jerome, Jalen Tyson, Craig Porter Jr., you mentioned 2 of those already. It's funny with Ty though, because I watch him continue to perform at a high level and continue to impact this team on both ends of the floor in such meaningful ways. And I can't help but sit there and be like, man, it's probably going to be really hard for the Cavs to retain him this offseason. But I'm trying to enjoy every second of it while he's here if they can't, because he is such a fun player and the spark that he provides. I mean, it's a lot of the same conversations we're having with a number of these guys off the bench, which just, again, speaks to how deep this team is. By the way, ready to get even deeper once DeAndre Hunt. But Ty is such a fun player to be able to have on this roster and such a valuable tool for Kenny Atkinson to deploy. And again, on a night where you were shorthanded, for him to step up along with the other guys you alluded to was I think huge for them tonight.
And we heard from Kobe Altman earlier today. What was his description of Ty Jerome? A revelation, right? Yeah. And that almost made them be able to part ways with Karis LeVert, who was doing a lot of the stuff that Ty is doing this year for the past couple of years, just as that kind of secondary ball handler to take the pressure off of DG and Donovan. Now you have a guy who can kind of do it all. He can shoot the 3 on catch shoots. He can pull up from wherever, from beyond the arc in transition. He can put pressure onto the rim and find his guys when he's drawing attention going to the rim. He can spray it out. We know how just amazing he's been with that floater. I find myself saying this every single night, but just the touch on the floater every time he turns that corner is just insane. And some of these are even getting contested now, and they're still going down. So Ty has been just so remarkably important to the Cavs that I don't know if you can even find words to describe it on a nightly basis, because even defensively, like the way that he's able to poke out steals and to, rotate over and help guys, put more pressure on the ball. He's just had so much to do with their success this year, and I'm glad that they know how important and how valuable that is, and I'm sure that his teammates are thankful that he is part of their team.
I know in the second half, Jalen Tyson left the game with a knee injury. I wasn't sure, Spence, if you saw anything on that. I was kind of setting up the studio post game, so I missed if anything was said about that. But did you catch anything on his status? Because I know people were a little bit worried about how serious injury was.
Yeah, so Danny Cunningham was on scene there of the inside shot. I was texting him. I was just watching the broadcast. I saw Tyson get up after he was getting his left knee worked on by Steven Spiro. Apparently, he only went back to the exercise bike, and he didn't go all the way back to the locker room, so that's a good sign. Okay. And then, of course, in the fourth quarter, he re-entered the game. So that's a good sign, I would assume. I'm sure that we'll get more information on that as the days come, but might have been able to dodge a bullet, I think, in this situation. But I can't say enough about JT and the efforts that he produces. Just making the simple passes, jumping for the extra rebounds, tipping them out to teammates so that they can secure possessions. He's just been so mature for being a rookie on a team that wants to compete for a championship. And I think that those are minute-earning type of plays, as Brad Doherty and John Michael put it on the broadcast.
Yeah, and I know there was a report after Kobe Altman spoke today about how the Cavs basically refused to include Jalen Tyson in any trades. And Kobe talked about him a little bit, but I was blown away, honestly, that they pulled off the trade they did without having to give up somebody like Jalen Tyson. Because normally you got to tack on like a young player that's you got some potential, like a ceiling that's kind of been untapped at this point in deals like that. We've seen that before when the Cavs traded obviously like Ochai Agbaji a couple years ago. Sometimes that just happens. So I think it's huge that they were able to retain him, and his growth and impact, even in small spurts, has been fed out there. I think he's still clearly gaining trust with Kenny Atkinson, because even Kenny admitted the other night against Boston that we asked why George Niang played 25 minutes, and he just kind of said in a game like this, I just don't know if he's ready for it yet. But I think back to his introductory press conference where he was like, I plan on playing this year. And he's spoken that into existence, right? Like, he has played, he's earned those spurts that he has had a chance to play in. The team's good, and they oftentimes blow teams out, so that's helped the cause too. He's gotten to be able to play a little bit more because of that. But it's been good to see, and that is a valuable asset that I think it was great that they were able to hold on to at the trade deadline.
It's paramount to be able to hang on to a rookie like Jalen Tyson, especially because of the rookie scale contract he's on.
Yeah.
It's a big part. Obviously, he's ingratiated himself into the locker room, but just from an on-the-books standpoint, knowing the apron is going to be coming, the apron monster is going to be coming for the Cavs.
And to have someone, now the apron monster?
I'm going to call it the apron monster. I just came up with that on the fly. But it's going to be important for them because they need those type of players. He is obviously someone who could play 2 through 4 if Kenny really wanted it. And, Kenny likes to go small, so he could see, time at the 4 position. He's somebody who's still, trying to find his jump shot a little bit. It's here or there, sometimes in the corner on the 3. You can see him airmail him, or you can see him go through the net swish. But it's the intangibles that Jalen Tyson brings to the table that really speak to the Cavs. And they are, again, winning plays that he makes. And the effort, just like the rest of the guys on the floor that you see collectively, is just so good. Can we talk about Darius Garland and Evan Mobley getting into that kind of tizzy there with Keyshawn George after George, was trying to rip the ball away from Evan Mobley? Darius Garland gets up into his face, puts the little finger in his face and just comes to the protection and to the the defense of Evan Mobley in that situation. Those are the kind of teammate building things that I love to see. And, Darius has liked to play the role of the villain a little bit too on the road here as of late.
It reminded me of the Memphis skirmish a couple of years ago when JB Bickerstaff dropped the line afterwards, where he was like, we don't start shit, but we're not afraid to end or finish shit, or whatever the hell it was. It was such a good line. That was a great JB Bickerstaff quote, probably one of his best quotes. It felt like to see them kind of stand up for each other. That obviously speaks to the chemistry that they have. But yeah, one of those kind of cool moments that speaks to just the how much this group means to each other, and that they're not going to be punked on any given night. Like they're going to go out and they're going to fight every team tooth and nail, and if they got to put their foot down on something, they will.
Yes, for sure. And I mean, the thing that was probably, I know we really didn't get into this, but like the first half again with the defense was just like, but the more that I think about it, there's 2 games left until the break.
Yeah,
this is that time of year.
I think that's creeping in. I do. We talked about that a couple weeks ago. Even like it's human nature to kind of look ahead and be like, man, when is this break coming? And I think they kind of let their foot off the gas every now and then. Like it happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Kenny's spoken to the maturity of the team and all of that stuff. So I don't think that that's going to be that big of a concern. But just speaking to what we've seen the last couple of games defensively, it just hasn't been the greatest. But hey, injection of life with DeAndre Hunter potentially playing here coming up on Monday. We'll see what happens. We got to figure out the physical situation when George and Karras can start playing for Atlanta, and that trade can finally be completed and it won't be pending anymore. It is official, but this is all the stuff, the logistics that deals have to go through. A lot of teams in the NBA tonight had pending players. It was funny to look at that injury report because that's just kind of how things shake out. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how DeAndre fits into all of this. We talked about that on our podcast when we reacted to the trade, but we've heard a little bit more from Kobe Altman since then. I'm sure that we'll get into that more eventually down the line, but that I think in part also will give them a little bit more juice defensively and get back to the identity that they know that they have.
Real quick, I was going to say, that the Cavs are shorthanded when you had Amani Bates minutes. We got Amani Bates minutes tonight. That means the Cavs were definitely shorthanded tonight. But Spence, I was going to say real quick here before we sign off, because this could come to fruition over the weekend before we talk again on Monday. But there's obviously been a lot of chatter around the Cavs' interest in Ben Simmons, who did finalize a buyout this on Friday. I know Kobe Altman was asked about it and basically said he's trying to let the dust kind of settle on the trade deadline before they jump to anything like that. But if the Cavs do go get somebody like Ben Simmons, again, I think it makes a lot of sense from a depth standpoint, but how does he kind of fit into this picture, you think, for the Cleveland Cavaliers? If that happens, again, it's all speculation at this point, but I'm just, kind of getting your thoughts on it.
Right. Yeah. And, to your point, like I asked him about the roster spots because it was a 2-for-1 deal for DeAndre Hunter. So, a couple roster spots open, that you're going to have to fill them, and they're going to probably look on the buyout market for that. I would say Ben Simmons, in an on-court fit standpoint, it makes a lot of sense because he kind of, you got a 6'10" guy who is a ball handler, but also defensively, he's just a big body. And we know he can play make with the best of them. He's one of the most talented and gifted playmakers I think I've ever seen.
Yeah.
This is, I think, a decision more for off the floor. Like, does he fit in this locker room? Would he be okay if he's only a break glass in case of emergency player? Because where do these guys fit in the rotation? Who are you going to usurp the minutes from? And Ben, I think we've seen like the injury history too with the back issue, which has clearly limited him. And in terms of availability, that's the other thing I think you have to think about. So, I mean, from an on-court perspective, I'd say if they really are interested in it, it makes sense because, and also not just the playmaking, he can rebound like crazy. He is a really good rebounder. And for a team that scores what seems like 130 points a night, he's not going to really be needed to score. He's going to be needed to play make. He's going to be needed to get steals, run the floor in transition, set other guys up. That stuff makes sense. It's, I think, more of the other stuff, the injury history.
Yeah.
Is his personality one that's going to fit in the locker room? And is he okay playing a lesser role? And by lesser role, I'm not talking about like 20 minutes a night. I don't know how often he would play just based on the rotation they have. So those are the things that I would personally look at, but we'll see. I'll use Kobe's word, where the dust settles.
I like that. Spence, good stuff as always, man. I encourage you all to head on over to the Cleveland Cavaliers on SI or si.com/NBA/Cavaliers to check out any of our written content from today. I got a couple stories up just about different things that Kobe Altman talked about, including, his motivations behind pulling the trigger on a move for DeAndre Hunter. But also head on over to the Cleveland Cavaliers on SI YouTube channel, where you can find more content like this. And of course, the entire Kobe Altman press conference from earlier today via Zoom. He was fantastic. He was very candid with, explaining the decisions and why they did this, and kind of looking ahead to what this means for the team. So I encourage you to check all that out. And of course, our podcast, as Spence mentioned, we did a post trade deadline episode yesterday that dropped. That of course is our Courtside with the Cavs on SI podcast. All those things available to you. And as always, we appreciate your support here on the site and on the YouTube channel. So we'll be back, I'm sure, on Monday to talk about whether or not DeAndre Hunter is going to be starting in this, or maybe not even starting, but at least part of the rotation on Monday. We'll see what that looks like. And in the meantime, we hope you have a great weekend and keep on following along with all things Cleveland Cavaliers with the Cleveland Cavaliers on SI.